Just let me say a few of the key messages. I mean, a lot of people think that you still have to wait for new breakthrough technology, and I don't think that's the case. We have the existing technologies, but they have to break through. And that doesn't come by itself. And unconventional gas in America was a big surprise to everyone, say, in the last decade. But the first pioneers were already out there trying to develop the technology in the 80s. So it takes a few decades, about 3 decades, for new technology to really come through. And that's a very normal time span in the energy industry to actually have new technologies coming on stream to about 1% market share when it actually becomes competitive with existing incumbents. So bear that in mind, 3 decades before it becomes competitive, another 3 decades before it actually reaches a natural market share. So it's a really intergenerational game. Then the other aspect is something about efficiency. A lot of policy is based on efficiency that we're going to improve. So the UK has something built in around 15% over the next 25 years. But efficiency doesn't come by itself. It has its own dilemmas, policy dilemmas, because who's going to pay for it? Because if an end consumer not have the expectation that end consumer prices will continuously rise, why would he invest now upfront a lot of money to invest in efficiency? Well, governments normally like to say that energy should be more affordable and come cheaper every day. And here's kind of a dichotomy to breach. Another critical technology which we have to really come to grips with soon is carbon capture and sequestration, CCS, really to decarbonize the power system. I'm afraid if you want a lower carbon system, you can't do without a technological fix called carbon capture and sequestration. Then my second key point is actually that gas will be a backbone of sustainable energy systems of the future. Why do I say that? Well, gas is abundant and affordable, etc. But if you want to have more and more renewables, intermittent renewables in your system, you need a kind of backbone, a flexible backup source which can actually take up that flexibility very cost efficiently. Now, we have done a lot of scenario exercises. And every time, right, you see that actually gas is a very good, cost-effective way to actually deal with the intermittency. But also we see some kind of natural saturation points in certain sectors of renewables. So when people say 100% renewables for everything is possible, I doubt it, and certainly not in the next 20 years. So gas will be really important in the future. And then I think the third main point is actually that there is urgent policy action required. People think they have time because 2050 is a long way, 80% then reduction seems to be still doable. But there's a kind of momentum you have to build up now. And we see actually a lack of policy development, certainly in a meaningful CO2 price, because that's the best way of actually steering consumers' behavior in doing more energy efficient things, or actually pay for new low carbon technologies like CCS. And also something what is quite often forgotten is market structures. You hear a lot of debate about the electricity market and we want to have mandated renewables in because it's too costly to do the free market way. So you get that. And then you say, oh, you have intermittency. How to solve that? Oh, we need capacity payments for generators to have capacity standby. That's great. So the generators get a kind of non-market-based compensations, you could argue. But that really pushes the flexibility requirement down the supply chains to the volume providers, the gas providers, in this case of coal providers. Coal is easy, you have a heap and you have a bulk carrier. But gas comes long distances in gas pipelines or for LNGs. And when there is no security of demand, because you have no clue how much you're going to sell, what the price is going to be, why should Russia develop a field 10,000 kilometers away from us while he doesn't have a long-term contract to finance it? And that is another security supply element. So I would say is, yes, you need market reform, but also the commercial aspects of market reform needs to be taken much more in consideration in an integrated way between electricity and gas, etc., and incumbents. And then my last point is really that the key uncertainties are there. And I mean, unconventional gas is a very good example, right? Will it really be replicable elsewhere in the world? Is the success of North America, is that going to happen in China and South America, and maybe in more modest form here? That's not very certain. Look at the policy debate, or say public debate about fracking. People don't really sure, right? Why should we do that? But If unconventional gas is successful, it really doubles the previous thought resource base of gas. And then it really makes it a real game changer. You can really go for a different type of energy systems in a sense that you can, early gains, replace coal by gas. But as you build a big infrastructure system on gas, also you start opening up options for the future. I would call it, say, you have room to maneuver in 2020s, 2030s, because you have a gas infrastructure which is also easily, as little extra cost, they make suitable for hydrogen gas or liquid hydrogen. So actually you may count you're lucky because you have an infrastructure you can piggyback on. If you do another route, then you don't have that infrastructure, and then it becomes very expensive to introduce hydrogen. Why do I mention hydrogen? Because renewables, yes, it's a good idea to decarbonize, but it needs storage. It needs some way of storing these electrons in a useful form. And also it needs a medium to actually be useful in other sectors than electricity, like, for instance, transportation. So maybe in 10 years, 20 years' time, when the hydrogen technology has really evolved very cost-effectively, and you have liquid hydrogen you can transport in tankers, it really becomes complementary of such gas system. And it gives you much more flexibility in the future. Then there are a few key uncertainties as well, and I would just say China. Most people think, well, China's far away, what does it do with us, our gas position? Well, China's decision on policy on the energy mix is very determining how much gas will be available in the rest of the world. If China feels comfortable, say, 4 times or 5 times their present gas consumption by 2030, then the market will be as big as the EU's market as today. And 600 BCM is a lot of gas coming from the market. Yes, they will have some domestic supply, but the more their own unconventional gas becomes successful in China, the more infrastructure they're going to build, so the more gas penetration you have in China, so the more comfortable they are to import a lot of gas via LNG. And guess what? Who competes against that? It's the EU foremost.
You've got about a minute.
And I'm almost finished. And the last point I want to make is acceptability. Really, we talk about all these new technologies, but it's very much new technologies are hard to have accepted by the public. If it's unconventional gas, it's the fracking debate. If it's carbon capture storage, is yes, great, but not under my house. Although people are very happy with producing gas under their house for many years, but they're not sure about the CO2 position. So social acceptability is a real issue which you have to deal with. And as a Shell, right, we are more and more now convinced that we have to engage communities, for instance, very upfront to make it acceptable. And maybe I should stop here then, if you want to be in time.
That would be very noble of you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks.
I have a natural agitation of a radio presenter. I think every 30 seconds is a crime against humanity, but it allows us to have a bit more discussion later. But we're going to have a brief discussion now about some of the subjects that are arising from that very interesting presentation. Do we have some questions? Anybody like to get us going with questions? And could you, of course, please identify yourself when you ask your question?
Good evening. My name is Jean-Marie Bourder, and I'm from Paris, France, as you may understand from my accent. I've known Wim for a number of years, and I'm very happy just to make a first comment, which is a very good, I think, summary of what is known and what is also unknown. And I think that there are at least 2 points which are really unknown. The first one is, I would say, the availability of carbon capture and sequestration. And you put it clearly, but I just want to insist. Another point which seems to me very important is whether or not shale gas will appear in other regions of the world. I know that Shell has bet on the shale gas in China, but I think in China there are enormous problems. There are problems of access, there are problems of water, there are problems of geology because the shale gas is
Let's stop it there because you've actually put two very nice pointed questions and one view of your own. So if you don't mind, I would just like to take an answer to those.
So let me pick up the point of how certain is this unconventional gas revolutions elsewhere in the world in North America. North America seems to be on the road, but still people have to realize that the success are in what are called sweet spots, geological sweet spots. There's a big area, but by random drilling over all these 30 years, they found certain areas where actually it is really profitable to do it. But unconventional gas wells are not so prolific as normal gas wells, so you have to drill an awful lot of them, and you have to do much more technology to that. But it seems that North America has cracked it, and people are very confident that certainly North America in the gas supply-demand is more or less self-balancing or even can start exporting LNG. The second point is how successful is unconventional gas in the rest of the world? And I would say that's anyone's guess. Maybe geologically, but still a lot of wells have to be drilled. People have to have confidence that actually they can find sweet spots. There's a lot of societal debate still. And therefore, our new scenarios, which we're going to publish in beginning next year, one of the critical uncertainties, as we call in these scenarios, is that gas there or isn't that gas there? But really, because that's almost bipolar, if it's there, you have an enormous opportunity to change your energy system, but if it's there, it will be very regional. It's a key uncertainty still.
Any more questions out there? Oh yes, quite a lot of hands. So I'll take a couple together. I'd like to take gentleman in the second row and the lady with the yellow jacket. Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Paul Eakins from University College London, Institute for Sustainable Resources. Thank you for your talk. Also, UK Energy Research Centre. Two very quick questions based on statements that were made. The first is by the chair that gas was a relatively low option compared with coal. Well, that of course is true in those countries where it would substitute for coal, but the UK is not one of those. And it is often presented as a substitute for coal in the UK, but we won't have coal in the UK to any extent beyond 2020. And the second, which you said, Wim, which is that it will deal with intermittency, it will indeed and will be crucial to deal with intermittency, but only at very low levels of use. And at the moment, the market would not subsidize or the market would not bear investment in gas-fired power stations in that very low level of use. So my questions to you are, is the extensive use of unabated gas compatible with the UK's carbon reduction targets in 2050? And if not, as I suspect, should we wait for any new dash for gas until the technical and commercial feasibility of gas CCS has been proved?
Hold that thought just a second while we take the lady's question in the 5th row in the yellow jacket. Thank you. Just pass it along as quickly as you can. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Charlotte Morton from the Anaerobic Digestion and Biogas Association, which potentially reveals my question. It was a very interesting presentation, and I agree with a lot of the issues. I'm just surprised that in talking about gas, there has been no mention of renewable gas, which therefore helps address the CO2 issues. Biogas can generate about 10% of the UK's domestic gas demand, so why wouldn't we be looking at it? And it can be scaled up very fast and very cheaply.
Do you have those in your mind?
Yep.
Two parts and then the second question.
So I agree with that. Also, the Netherlands are looking at biogas. We have a lot of animals, waste, etc. we can use. It's estimated it can be 8% of the total gas demand in certain sectors. So it's significant, and it's being developed. And actually, you can see it's actually being developed not because of government policy, but because the farmers and the greenhouse growers actually see it as a good, cost-effective way to reduce the energy bill. So it's going on. Another element actually in this greenhouse gas business and in the agriculture is geothermal warmth, right? Where they actually directly take it from the ground or actually use solar boilers. So these integrated loop systems in certain areas are really taking off. And then I come back to Paul's point as yes, biogas is very important, or commercial biomass if it's in our terms. We assume that there will be quite a significant amount of biogas available which goes into gas-fired power stations. And also in our outlook we assume that CCS is going to be developed on all new power stations post-2020 in Europe, obviously, otherwise you not go there. Now, having said that, I mean, say the early gains, say with replacing a little bit of coal left in the UK, plus the downturn in economic activity, plus the efficiency drive, which is supposed to happen, probably the UK could have something like, what's it, 15 to 20% carbon reduction compared to 1990 in 2020. But thereafter it becomes very difficult. And then it becomes, yeah, what kind of policy do you take? If it is unabated, then you will get stuck to that and you can't get any further. So you must have CCS, and that's what we assume in our modeling. But then we still get stuck around 45, at best 45% by 2050. And if it's a kind of business as usual scenario, so you don't have much policy support for CCS, you probably will stick to about, you go back up to only 15% abatement. So yes, without CCS in long term is not the solution for a lower carbon system. It has to come combined. And that's why our company is actually willing to invest a lot in that technology and demonstrate it can be done commercially and cost effectively.
Thank you very much, Ben. As a particularly, like, did you want to continue?
I
think if you feel that you've covered it, but if there's anything else you want to say very briefly, we will just.
No, I think I'm.
Yes,
I'm
fine. Well, in that case, you are retired.
Oh, thank you.
No, as we've got.